You are scrolling through your phone, and you see it. An announcement, a photograph, a success story. And you feel that familiar, hot, painful pang in your chest. Envy. Your first reaction is to push it down, to feel ashamed of the feeling, to tell yourself, I should be happy for them. But what if that pang of envy was not a sign of your pettiness? What if it was a homing signal from the deepest part of you? A signal trying desperately to get your attention. You have been taught that envy is one of these 7 deadly sins, a flaw in your character. But in the world of Jungian psychology, we see it as something else entirely. We see it as one of the most spiritually potent and informative emotions you possess. It is your soul's brutally honest way of saying, hey, look over there. That is for us too. Shame is the wrong response to this sacred signal. Curiosity is the right one. Today, we perform a radical act of alchemy. We will take the poison of envy and we will transform it into medicine. We will learn to see it not as a sin, but as a compass. A compass that points directly to your unmet needs, your unlived values, and the breathtaking, buried treasure of your golden shadow.
Let's begin by validating the shame. Envy feels awful. There is a reason it is called a deadly sin. It makes us feel small, petty, less than. It isolates us, trapping us in a silent internal prison of comparison. And the voice of our good person persona rushes in to condemn it. You should be happy for them. A good person celebrates others' success. And so, we feel ashamed of the envy, and then we feel ashamed of ourselves for feeling ashamed. It is a double trap. To escape this trap, we must first become alchemists. We must learn to separate the poison from the medicine, because there are 2 distinct kinds of envy, and learning to tell them apart is the first step to using this emotion as a tool instead of being used by it. The first kind is destructive envy. This is the envy of the wounded ego, rooted in a belief of scarcity. It looks at another person's success and says, I hate that you have that, and I want you to lose it. It wants to tear down, to diminish, to destroy. It believes that their light somehow diminishes your own. This is the poison, and we are not going to work with this. But there is another kind of envy, a kind that is far more common for people with a good heart. This is aspirational envy. This envy is not an attack. It is a recognition. It looks at another person's success and the soul whispers, what they have has just awakened a deep, profound, and unmet longing inside of me. This is not about wanting to take something away from them. It is about the painful, beautiful recognition that your own soul is calling for a similar experience. This is the medicine. This is the compass. Aspirational envy is the echo of an unlived potential. It is your soul recognizing a frequency that it was also meant to broadcast. So, when this compass begins to spin, when you feel that painful pang, what is it actually pointing to? This compass doesn't just point in one direction. It can lead you to 3 different kinds of buried treasure. The first and most direct treasure it points to is a disowned power or talent. This is a direct link to your golden shadow. Let's imagine Chloe. She has a colleague, another nurse named Maria, who has recently started a small, successful side business creating beautiful, handcrafted skincare products. Maria is passionate, confident, and unapologetic about her ambition. When Chloe sees Maria's success, she feels that familiar, painful pang of envy. Her inner critic immediately says, "You should be happy for her. Don't be petty." But the new Chloe, the one who is learning to be a student of her own soul, pauses. She asks a new question. What is this envy trying to tell me? She looks closer. She's not envious of the specific products Maria is making. What she is envious of is Maria's courage, her willingness to take a risk, her unapologetic ambition, her ability to create something beautiful from nothing and share it with the world. The compass of her envy is not pointing at Maria's business. It is pointing directly to the exiled entrepreneur inside of Chloe herself. The creative spirit she was told was just a hobby. The leader she was told was bossy. The ambitious woman she was taught to suppress. The fundamental law of this work is that you do not envy others for qualities you do not possess, at least in seed form. Chloe's envy is a direct reflection of her own buried gold. It is her soul's way of saying, look, that courage, that creativity, that is ours too. It's locked in the bag waiting. This is the first treasure, the recognition of a part of your golden shadow that is alive in another person. It is the most profound message that envy can bring. But sometimes the message is simpler, more immediate, more practical. And this is the second kind of treasure the compass can point to. It is not about a disowned power. It is about an unmet need.
But the compass of envy does not always point to something as grand as a disowned power. Sometimes its message is far simpler, more immediate, and more practical. Sometimes the envy you feel is not pointing to your golden shadow. It is simply pointing to an unmet need. This is the second treasure the compass can reveal. You see your friend's social media post from a beautiful, quiet beach in Mexico, and you feel that familiar pang of envy. Your first thought, conditioned by the inner critic, might be, I'm jealous of her vacation. I wish I had her money or her freedom. But I invite you to look deeper, to use the envy as a diagnostic tool. Ask yourself, beyond the specific vacation, what is the need that this image is activating in me? And perhaps the answer is not Mexico. Perhaps the answer is rest, or silence, or beauty, or adventure, or simply a break from my responsibilities. The envy is not telling you to book a flight. It is telling you that your own, very legitimate, human need for rest and replenishment has been dangerously ignored for too long. The pain you feel is not about their vacation. It is the pain of your own exhaustion. The compass is simply using their experience to show you your own inner drought. Let's imagine Chloe again. She feels a sharp pang of envy when she sees a colleague, a fellow nurse, leave work on time to go to a yoga class. The old Chloe would have judged her as not a team player. The new Chloe, the student of the soul, pauses. She asks, what is this pointing to? And she realizes, with a flash of insight,
The envy is not about yoga. It is about the fact that her colleague is unapologetically prioritizing her own well-being. The envy is a direct message about Chloe's own unmet need for self-care, for permission to put herself first, even for just 1 hour. The envy is not telling her to go to yoga, it is telling her to go home. This leads us to the third, and often deepest treasure the compass can reveal. It is not about a disowned power. It is not just about an unmet need. It is about an unlived value. Your values are the core principles that give your life meaning and direction. Things like integrity, community, creativity, service, freedom. When you live in alignment with your values, you feel a sense of purpose and rightness. When you live in opposition to them, you feel a sense of inner conflict, dissatisfaction, and soul sickness. And your envy is a powerful alarm bell for this misalignment. Let's say you work in a highly competitive corporate job. It pays well, but the culture is cutthroat. You see a post from an old friend who left a similar job to work for a nonprofit organization that helps homeless animals. They don't make much money, their work is hard, but you see a picture of them smiling, holding a rescued puppy. And you are pierced by a profound, almost heartbreaking envy. What is the compass pointing to? It is pointing to one of your deepest, most unlived values. The value of service, of contribution, of making a difference. The envy is a direct message from your soul that your current life, despite its external success, is starving one of your most essential values. It is a call to action, not necessarily to quit your job and rescue puppies, but to find a way in your own life to honor and express that value before the dissatisfaction becomes a crisis. So why do we suppress this powerful, informative emotion? Why are we so ashamed of a tool that is so clearly trying to guide us home? We suppress envy for two primary reasons. First, because of the good person rule. The persona we have so carefully constructed is built on the idea that a good person is always happy for others. To feel envy is to have failed at being good. It feels like a moral failing. And so we shove it into the shadow, ashamed of its very existence. The second reason is even deeper. We suppress envy because it forces us to confront our own dissatisfaction. It is the brutally honest friend who tells you a truth you do not want to hear. It holds up a mirror to the empty places in our own lives. It is far easier and far less painful in the short term to judge the other person as showing off or being lucky than it is to sit with the quiet, aching truth that envy reveals. My life is missing something I deeply long for. That confrontation is terrifying, so we suppress the messenger. But here's the danger of suppression. Envy that is not acknowledged and explored does not simply go away. It curdles. It ferments in the darkness of the shadow, and it transforms into its toxic cousin, resentment. It turns into bitter, passive-aggressive comments, into gossip, into a quiet, joyless cynicism that poisons your view of the world. Suppressed envy does not just prevent you from finding your own gold, it pollutes the entire well of your own soul. But you have a choice. You can continue to treat this feeling as a source of shame, or you can begin to treat it as a sacred practice. You can learn to turn towards it
with the curiosity of a treasure hunter and ask the great question, what are you trying to show me?
So if this compass is so wise, if it is a sacred messenger from our own soul, why do we suppress it with such violence? Why does the feeling of envy bring with it such a profound wave of shame? We do this for two reasons that are rooted deep in the programming of the good person persona. The first reason is simple: the good person rulebook. Somewhere in that unwritten book of rules you carry, there is a core tenet that says, a good person is always happy for others' success. To feel envy, therefore, is to fail at being good. It feels like a moral transgression. And so your internal needs sensor, the one we met in a previous conversation, immediately stamps it with the label bad and shoves it down into the shadow before it can contaminate your identity as a good person. The second reason is deeper, more vulnerable. We suppress envy because it forces us to confront our own dissatisfaction. Envy is the brutally honest friend who holds up a mirror to the empty rooms in our own house. It points to the unlived life, and that confrontation can feel unbearable. It is far easier, far less painful in the short term to look at your friend's success and judge them as lucky or showing off than it is to sit with the quiet, aching, and honest truth that their success reveals. My own life is missing something that I deeply, profoundly long for. That is a painful truth to hold, and so we shoot the messenger. We suppress the envy to avoid the confrontation with our own inner emptiness. But here is the great danger that Carl Jung warned us about. An emotion that is suppressed does not go away. It does not dissolve. It curdles. It ferments in the dark, warm, airless vault of the shadow. And envy, when left to ferment, transforms into its toxic, corrosive cousin, resentment. Suppressed envy turns into bitter gossip about the person you once admired. It turns into a passive-aggressive comment on their social media post. It becomes a quiet, joyless cynicism that poisons your ability to celebrate anything, anywhere. You become the person who looks at success and immediately searches for the flaw. Suppressed envy doesn't just keep you from your own gold. It turns you into a person who cannot stand the sight of gold in others. It poisons the well of your own soul. But you have a choice right now, in this moment. You can continue to treat this powerful emotion as a source of shame, or you can begin to treat it as a sacred practice. You can learn to turn towards it, not with judgment, but with the gentle curiosity of a treasure hunter. You can begin the alchemical work of transforming the lead of envy into the gold of insight. I want to give you a practice for this, a safe, private, and powerful way to work with the compass. I call it the Envy Journal, and it has 3 simple alchemical steps. The first step is confess without judgment. This happens in the sacred, private space of your journal, for your eyes only. The next time you feel that pang of envy, I invite you to open your journal and write the ugly truth with brutal honesty. For example, I envy my friend Sarah for quitting her job to become an artist. Just let the truth exist on the page. You are not a bad person for writing this. You are a courageous truth teller. This simple act of confession takes the feeling out of the darkness of the shadow and brings it into the light of your conscious awareness. The second step is the most crucial. It is translate and decode. Now you look at the specific thing you wrote down and you translate it. You are not a detective looking for faults. You are a linguist translating a foreign language. You ask the great question: what is the underlying quality, need, or value that this situation represents? So for the statement, "I envy Sarah for quitting her job to become an artist," you translate, what does that represent? It represents courage. It represents creativity. It represents freedom. It represents authenticity. Suddenly, it is no longer about Sarah. It is about the universal human values and powers that her action has illuminated for you. You have successfully decoded the compass. Which brings us to the third and most empowering step: reclaim with a micro step. This is where you answer the soul's call, but you do it with immense gentleness. You look at the qualities you just translated: courage, creativity, freedom, and you ask the most important question of this entire practice. How can I bring just 1% of that quality into my own authentic way this week? This is not about copying their life. This is about answering your soul's unique call. You don't have to quit your job to be an artist, but what is 1% of creativity for you this week? Maybe it's buying a $5 sketchbook and drawing for 10 minutes. Maybe it's rearranging the furniture in your living room. Maybe it's trying a new recipe. A tiny, non-threatening micro action. What is 1% of courage? Maybe it's making that phone call you've been avoiding. Maybe it's speaking up for 15 seconds in a meeting. Maybe it's finally saying a gentle no to a small request. Do you see the alchemy? You have taken the raw, painful, shameful energy of envy, and you have transformed it into a clear insight and into a small, achievable, and empowering step forward on your own unique path. You have turned a poison into your personal prescription for growth. You have used your trigger as your guide. This is the true, practical, and life-changing magic of shadow work.
Today, we have performed a radical act of spiritual alchemy. We have taken one of the most shamed and misunderstood human emotions, envy, and we have reclaimed it as a sacred tool, a divine compass. We have learned that the painful pang of aspirational envy is not a sign of your pettiness. It is a homing signal from your soul. A brutally honest messenger pointing with unwavering accuracy to your own unlived life. We have learned to decode its messages, to see that it points to the three great treasures: your disowned powers, your unmet needs, and your unlived values. We have understood why we suppress this vital information, because of the good person rulebook that forbids it, and because it forces us to confront the empty rooms in our own house. But we now know the danger of this suppression, how it curdles into a joyless resentment that poisons our own well. The great insight of all Jungian work is this: you cannot heal what you are not willing to feel. You cannot integrate what you are not willing to acknowledge. The practice we have explored today, the Envy Journal, is your safe and private laboratory for this sacred work. It is a structured way to confess the truth without judgment, to translate the message with curiosity, and to reclaim your power with a single, gentle, achievable micro-step. You are learning to alchemize your triggers into your treasure map, to see the success of others not as a threat, but as a mirror reflecting the beautiful, powerful, and unique gold that is waiting in your own shadow. As the poet Rumi wrote, "What you seek is seeking you." Your envy is the proof that your own magnificence is seeking you. It is calling you home to yourself. This is a profound shift in perspective. It is the end of the tyranny of comparison and the beginning of a life of inspired, authentic action. You no longer need to look outside of yourself for a roadmap. Your own feelings, even the most uncomfortable ones, are the most accurate guides you will ever have. We have now learned to listen to the roar of our anger, and we have learned to listen to the whispers of our envy. We are becoming fluent in the symbolic language of the shadow. But decoding these signals from a distance is one thing. What would it be like to have a direct conversation? What if you could sit down face to face with these exiled parts of yourself? What if you could ask your inner critic what it truly needs? What if you could have a dialogue with your fatigue or your fear? Carl Jung developed a powerful, mysterious, and profoundly healing technique for just this purpose. It is the art of having a conscious, waking dream, a direct conversation with the figures of your own soul. It is called active imagination. And that is the mysterious territory we will venture into in our next conversation. For this week, your invitation is to become the alchemist, to bravely listen to your compass. Do not run from the pang of envy. Decode it. To commit to this revolutionary practice, I invite you to join a community of fellow treasure hunters. Affirm this new perspective. Share this powerful, liberating declaration in the comments below. My envy is my guide. By sharing it, you transform a source of shame into a statement of power, and you give others permission to do the same. Thank you for your courage. The treasure hunt has begun.